Guaranteed to be worth the wait for a change. Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Let me just say on the record, the following intro is under review. VAR will have a check. We'll come back in about an hour's time. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 290 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighbourhood host, Dre Harrison. And, we got some good stuff to get to here. It comes at the end. Unfortunately, we have to get through the Daytona 500 first. It's ironic we came off a pretty interesting NASCAR movie, to say the least, last time out. And, well, we tried with this year's Daytona 500.
Yeah,
we tried.
We gave it a good old try.
The good old college try.
It seems that if we get a good 24, we get a pretty crap 500 and vice versa.
Yeah, it seems to be one way or the other. We'll break down how it all turned out. We've got a little bit of interesting Formula 1 news to get through, and in the second half of the show, we'll be talking all about Formula E's 2021 season preview. We go team by team as we go up and down the field as their season starts next weekend. I think it's the 26th, I want to say.
26th and the 27th. Dre.
Yeah, double header in Saudi Arabia to start off the season. And we'll break all of that down going into the second half of the show. But with me, this, as always, RJ O'Connell. Hello, sir.
I truly hope that by the time this episode comes out that the state of Texas will have thawed out and that maybe some of the people in charge can, think about the choices that have put their people in this position to begin with. Just a thought.
A very wholesome thought indeed. Stay safe down there in Texas. From this Brit from across the pond. As well, Ryan King. Hello, sir.
Hello. About to get hit by another big snowstorm here in New York, and everything's just going to be just fine.
Oh, here comes King with that smug blue checkmark energy.
Oh, yeah. He's got gritters and stuff. Everything will be fine in New York. They get 3 of these a year. No.
3.
Smug git. And also with me is Cam Buckley. Hello, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm also going to be getting that snowstorm, and unlike King, who's confident about it, I live on a cliff. Real fun to get down the driveway in the morning.
That ain't good. Do you just roll yourself down the hill and hope for the best? It doesn't become like a barreling snowball by the time you're halfway down.
Yeah, no, I just get to the top and crouch down and then spin dash like Sonic.
You see, it's a metaphor for the number of green flag overtakes in this year's Daytona 500.
Oof. Big oof. Big oof. We'll be talking about the Daytona 500 very briefly. We've also got Formula 1 news. Again, we could be seeing another weekend format change. Kinda. Sorta. Yes, if you think you've heard this before, you probably have. But this one is actually looking like it's probably going to happen. More on that soon, as well as Red Bull finally revealing what they're doing with their power units next year. And of course, as mentioned, the Formula E 2021 Season 7 preview later on as well. But places you can find us in the meantime, we're on youtube.com/motorsport101. We're on facebook.com/motorsport101. If you're watching us on YouTube, hi, subscribe, hit the bell if you haven't already. If you're not, our Twitter handles are at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at Ryan Eric King, and at CBuckley917. As I said, on the screens right now if you're watching on YouTube. Our podcast itself is motorsport_101. We're on Instagram, motorsport101 pod for all updates on our content over there. And if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our audio shows. You can upgrade to $10 for the video versions and access to the supporters club of our Discord server where you can listen to these episodes live as they go out. Shout out to Tony, Finley, Jason, Sasha, who's currently celebrating Man City's GOATs coming back in one fell swoop. Lucky git. Vikesh and Zoe. Have a good one, guys. Enjoy the show. You can find all those details and a whole lot more on our website, motorsport101.com. So, without further ado, let's get into the news. So, fellas, let's just say everything about the Daytona 500 pretty much didn't go to plan. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that would be a fair assessment.
It was the perfect way to start the best season ever.
Oh man, if this is what you're calling the best season ever, we're in big trouble. It started off at 3 p.m., as was very controversial on Twitter, because we knew days in advance that it's going to rain pretty much all late afternoon on Sunday.
But think about that prime time viewing window, Cam. We gotta get that prime time viewing window for the finish.
No,
what prime time?
And we can't have the West Coast waking up at 9 a.m. I mean, who wakes up at 9 a.m. for a race in the United States?
That would admittedly, I don't know where anywhere in the world where before 8 p.m. is prime time.
Certainly not here.
They time it in with factoring in red flags for crashes.
Oh, they just assume. They just assume. Yeah, we're gonna have to stop this race.
Yeah, but
that's always a good sign.
Yeah, race started. We were under the threat of rain pretty much immediately, and the drivers knew they had to get all they could get. Well, on lap 15, shit got bad real quick. And I think 16 of the 40-something cars got wiped out in a single crash, including
the pole sitter, Alex Bowman.
Yeah, the pole sitter and outside pole sitter, former outside pole sitter due to the move to a backup car. A lot of good cars got wiped out.
Yeah, not to name names, but Christopher Bell, we're looking at you. We're looking at you.
Yeah. When you have a run and you're about to hit someone on a plate track at a bad angle, you don't go through with it.
Yeah, this becomes very important later on in the race. Although I will say, this pileup did give us some good content. Tyler Reddick came back with a car that was just... I don't know how to describe it, but suffice to say, he had accidentally turned his Cup Series car into a Whelen Modified.
Yeah, imagine being at one of the most aerodynamically dependent tracks in all of motorsport, honing your car for months in a wind tunnel, and you get passed by a car with no front end.
How did that happen?
Yeah, on the downside, car falling apart, William Byron did manage to get his car fixed, but not enough to make sure that bits of it didn't fall off directly into the path of journeyman driver Quinn Huff and ruining his race. When he probably should have been parked 2 laps prior.
Yeah, and after that happened, and we had the aftermath of that crash, the rains came down and didn't stop coming down for about 6 hours.
I was at the point where I was just like, buddy, call this race, push it back to tomorrow, and let these people go on with their lives. Most of the drivers were off taking photos of themselves at nice chain sit-down restaurants.
Oh, Lord. Didn't Ross Chastain go to McDonald's?
He did. He ordered the McDonald's for his entire team.
Someone had McDonald's, someone went to Panda Express, someone went to Cheddar's, which is basically like a more southern version of Applebee's, is the way I would describe it.
Does everything there have cheese?
Amazingly not.
I also love that 2 of our Europeans in our Discord, Finley and Jason, said, I went to bed.
Yeah. Buddy, that was a smart move.
Yeah, by all accounts, we figured that this race was done on Sunday and would resume on 4 p.m. Monday on Fox Sports 1, thus destroying any ratings they might have achieved by starting the race at 3 p.m.
But see, here's the thing, Cam. Either decision they make, they are fucked in the ratings.
Yeah, they are. They made their own bed and they got to lay in it. But, amazingly, we got enough of a break in the rainstorms to dry the track and get going just after 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
And was it worth it, Cam? Was it
Absolutely
worth the wait?
Not. Because this race was shit. We had, oh my god. So all the way towards the end of stage 1, it was single file up near the wall behind the dominant car on the day, one of Mr. Denver Hamlin, going for 3 in a row.
Our old buddy.
Yes, noted team owner and Jordan Brand athlete. That becomes important later. And it became a reoccurring theme of Hamlin leading. At the end of a stage, we'd get a little bit of passing, a little bit of action, and then as soon as the new stage would start, right back to single file.
Hamlin led 98 laps.
Yeah.
If this was a race where best car wins, Hamlin's a 4-time winner of this event, which would have put him in very elite territory of himself, Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, and nobody else in the history of the Great American Race registered trademark.
Yeah. His car looked like Dale Jr.'s 2015 plate car. He could pass anyone he wanted. He could get to the front more or less at will.
But you know where it looked the most comfortable, as did most everybody's cars? The high groove.
Yep. The high groove, single file up near the wall. And his car could pull that top lane so effectively that anyone dropping down to the bottom lane, they could put a line together, but they couldn't get up to him. And then final pit stops happened. Because absolutely nothing happened in the meantime, let's skip to the final pit stop. Everyone
He's
pits.
not making this up, by the way. He's not exaggerating any of this.
No. We get to the final pit stops. Of course, at plate tracks, you pit in groups because you need drafting partners. The Gibbs cars all pitted together, and Hamlin had quite literally too good of a pit stop. He got out ahead of his teammates, and he lacked a drafting partner. He lacked momentum, and he got passed by the oncoming pack.
It is the weirdest thing that at super speedways where they clamp down on the horsepower, they don't use restrictor plates, they use what's called tapered spacers in the engines to slow the cars down, that having a huge lead is the worst possible thing that could happen to you at a race like this, or at Talladega.
It's like you do everything right and it ends up being wrong.
Yeah, he ends up being shuffled back in the pack and never really made a move. And in the final few laps, we had death, taxes, blood, shit, other various fluids, Penske at the front in a 1-2 of Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski. Being followed by one Michael McDowell, the guy who's most famous for having one of the scariest crashes of the late 2000s, driving the Aaron's 00 car at Texas.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Michael McDowell is the definition of a NASCAR journeyman driver. He had spent years at start and park teams, which, as their name implies, show up to start the race, run a few laps, then park it and collect the prize money, which used to be a viable strategy. In other words, Michael McDowell was not very competitive for many, many years of his career. He is also probably lesser known for winning a Pro Mazda championship on the road to Indy, a cup of coffee and Champ Car as Ryan Hunter-Reay's replacement at the end of 2005. Suffice to say, this man has had a long and arduous career, and it looked like he was never going to win a NASCAR Cup Series race after being at this game for 14 years.
Yeah. I was going to say, Sasha in our Discord literally pointed to describe him in one word, and the word was not even a real one. It was called unserious.
Genuinely a decent driver, but just he's never had an opportunity at a top quality team. However, Front Row Motorsports, the team he drives for, who are never on the front row, they're always pretty solid at plate tracks.
Yeah, this is a team that once was a start and park operation. They were once field fillers, and I'm not going to tell you that they are a front-running organization, because they're not, but they are at the very least a plucky lower midfield team.
Yeah, they're always
they don't even have to worry about qualifying.
Mid-20s on most normal tracks.
But every time at a race like this, especially at a super speedway, because of the nature of the racing itself, a team like that has a fighting chance at a out-of-nowhere victory.
Yeah, because it's less about the quality of the equipment you're in and more about playing the game and being able to position yourself in a place to succeed. Well, we get to the final lap because there was so little action that they waited until the last run down the backstretch to make a move. We get a second lane. Joey Logano's in front. Keselowski's being pushed by McDowell, and oh no, someone puts it into a gap that isn't supposed to be there. Someone throws a block, and ooh.
Yeah, that was a scary wreck. It's always scary when I see a sudden burst of fire coming out of a pack of cars that's just being wadded up and chewed apart like they've just been run through the guts of Truckosaurus.
Yeah, crash was nasty. Thankfully, no one hit in a place that would pose any danger to the drivers. Obviously, NASCAR Cup cars, if nothing else, are very, very safe. We didn't have a repeat of last year where someone took an actual stock car to the actual head.
Thank goodness for that. Ryan Newman's race ended much earlier.
Yeah, Ryan Newman's race ended in the initial lap 15 pileup.
Yep.
So, we are left with only a handful of cars left going around turn 3 and turn 4. Michael McDowell is leading next to Chase Elliott, next to Austin Dillon, and they throw the caution to end the race.
Oh!
Michael McDowell is your 2021 Daytona 500 champion.
This has a habit of happening. First-time winners at the Daytona 500 every 10 years, because we had it with Waltrip in 2001, Trevor Bayne in 2011, and now McDowell in 2021.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I know that in retrospect, Michael McDowell probably... I don't even know if it was probably pushed Brad Keselowski in a run that he couldn't back out of to take the win, but like that precedent was set when Austin Dillon quite literally dumped Eric Almirola into the turn 3 fence to win the Daytona 500.
Yeah, because dumping cars at super speedways in excess of 190 miles per hour is no longer taboo. Look, I'm not mad that Michael McDowell won the race. He seems like a genuinely good dude by all accounts, and watching someone get their first win it's always cool.
Especially when their first win is the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good first win.
Yeah, but amongst an incredibly boring race where not a whole lot happened, it was defined by 2 huge pileups. They couldn't even let us race back to the line when there was no one injured and there was no threat to the remaining cars of getting in another crash. Unless they caused it of their own volition.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It's typically been the play. If there's like a big pile up with half a lap to go, they will throw the yellow.
Not in the last couple of years. As long as it happens in a place where, you're not going to have them going full speed back to the line into that wreckage.
Yeah.
To let them race.
Yeah.
It seemed like they didn't want to take the chance after what happened last year.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a problem with that. My problem with this race is that it just generally wasn't worth waiting it out to see if they would restart it on that same day or not. I mean, all this was the infamously boring 2000 Daytona 500, which had a grand total of like 5 green flag on-track lead changes. Only it didn't cock tease an upset first-time winner like it did in 2000. Sup, John Benson Jr. Sup, Lycos.
Yeah, the only thing that generated any excitement before the final couple laps was people trying to make plays for stage points right at the end of stages. Were it not for those, we'd probably run
if it wasn't
single
for
file.
That, and if it wasn't for Bubba Wallace having a legitimate shot to win until he had to pit, make an unscheduled stop for a loose wheel.
Yeah, Bubba looked great. He was running up in the top 5 for most of the race.
Didn't have a particularly good start, given his car failed inspection 3 times before it even started.
He lost his qualifying spot and had to fight his way up. But now that he's in some good equipment, he's showing what he can do.
Yeah, it's good enough that it has to go through inspection multiple times. In case you were wondering, in case you were worried about it,
if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this race was bad.
This is probably the worst Daytona 500 I've watched and have cognitive memory of, because I was 3 in 2000.
Oh God.
So yeah,
I think
it's
less
right there
happened in
with
20.
it's right there with 2013 of, dude, let something happen, anything.
It was a dud.
It was a dud.
I'm happy for McDowell, but that race was a dud. And speaking of duds, Dre, we got some news about Formula One sprint races.
We do indeed. There was a meeting between Formula One's team principals last week. A range of topics were discussed. The other one we'll get to shortly. But one of the big takeaways that came out of it was what they were saying was universal agreement between the principals, which in and itself is somewhat of a miracle. Yes, they all agreed on something. I know, I'm as shocked as you are. But amazingly, what they agreed on was the concept of adding sprint races to the calendar. Now, hear me out here. This is a little vague because they haven't actually formulated a hard plan for this yet. That's what they're now going to go off and do. Everyone was like, sprint races? Does that sound good? And I was like, yeah, sounds all right. So how do we actually do these? I'll get back to you on that. So they're going to go off and formulate a hard plan, but the rumblings that was in the meeting were along the lines of a free race trial, probably later on in the year. I think the three rumoured circuits were Interlagos, Canada and Monza, is where they could end up trying this out. Canada, I think, is normally July. Interlagos is normally down the back.
That is a
Monza,
bold
September.
assumption that we're going to have all three of those races to begin with, but that's besides...
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? The way COVID's going, God knows at this point. We're like, your guess is as good as mine, but that's the provisional plan, and I mean the super provisional plan. They would have some form of smaller point system for these sprint races in general. Probably similar to something like what we get currently in Formula 2 and 3. Formula 2 specifically, because we all know they have sprint races, and I think they only give out 15 points for a win as opposed to the normal 25 for the feature in F1 races in general. So if I had to guess, something along those lines. They haven't worked out the format or the length of the race yet, and the other little things like how would the grid be formed, how tyre allocations would work out for something like that.
So they basically haven't decided anything.
We agree on the idea of it. Let's actually make a plan.
But
there's nothing concrete.
There's so many falling blocks where this could fall apart, where it's like, again, the idea of giving out reduced points. Like, yes, they've all agreed to that, but it's like, hey, is this race going to set the grid for the race? Or, like, there's so many places where this could fall apart and not happen, and this has happened so many times before that I'm not buying in until I see a concrete plan.
Once, King is even more cynical than I am about this, and that's saying something because I'm normally more optimistic. It's nothing about this really is set in stone. This is like
how many years have we been hearing about this?
This is like an alpha for a video game. It's not even like the beta you might get to publicly test. This is the alpha version.
This is like the current NSX of ideas, where we saw the idea 5 years before it actually happened, and we're all just like, just either go through with it or cancel it.
Yeah, and as King points out, I think King's spot on in the sense of there is a lot of potential dominoes along the way where this could, self-destruct, i.e. the point system. Does it set Sunday's grid? What's the tyres going to look like? How long is the races going to be? What does it do with engine parts? Because you could potentially be running cars for longer depending on how long the sprint race ends up being.
Yeah, because it's not so much the sprint races themselves, it's the effect it has on the rest of the weekend around it, and indeed the rest of the season around it.
Yeah, because there's so many dividing points where team principals have aired different opinions on what it should be. Where some team principals would like the idea of a reverse grid sprint race, and cited, the W Series non-championship race is a great example of how it could be exciting. While other people, Toto Wolff, say that reverse grids are too WWE for Formula One.
Yeah, I remember saying that last year.
Back to this. if there is some gimmick that pops up in racing that people don't like, let's compare it to pro wrestling. That's a fucking
Straight
laziest.
away.
That's the laziest line of reasoning.
I love how most times the WWE get brought up about any change being gimmicky is mainly because it would cause things to be too chaotic and random, while pro wrestling is very much, hey, this is what the finish is gonna be.
Yeah, it's already. You're complaining about it being unscripted and then comparing it to the most scripted of all sports.
Do you think that Super Formula fans go, wow, they're turning this into New Japan Pro Wrestling? I want to be the guy that's just like, oh man, they're turning NASCAR to All Elite Wrestling.
Oh, yes, Michael McDowell is all in for Daytona 500. No, I do find it amazing that that's the laziest comparison in the book, and that it's also just so heavily, you're talking about the most heavily scripted sports program out there, and yet Formula One can't string together a hard plan for a sprint race to save its life, because we've been having this conversation on and off for years regarding either a potential reverse grid race. This was all the rumbling talk last year. When I first saw this come up on the news, I literally joked on Twitter, oh, is that time of year again already? We won't nobody save this one till June.
That's just it. I mean, look how many years they were trying to mess with qualifying. The one time they did, it sucked so bad they reverted it within 3 rounds.
We don't speak of elimination qualifying round here. It's in the cursed bin alongside Lord Voldemort.
But that's the thing. If you go through Formula One's history, that's the thing that's always changed: qualifying. Like every decade, people somehow find a way to get bored with qualifying and come up with a new format. And I think and now we've come up with a qualifying format that actually works.
Yeah, it's like that's the whole point I was going to make. It was that. Okay, you want sprint races. Fine, I can understand why you might think that's an attractive option. And look, on its most pure and basic argument, more racing is probably a good thing. Yeah. My counterpoint to all of this was, you're messing with arguably the best part of a race weekend, which is the current qualifying format. The current qualifying format is awesome. I've always really enjoyed this qualifying format. I like the free splits. I like the drama of guys being on the bubble. Guys often getting their last runs over the line and seeing how the timing tower goes up and down. It's awesome. I genuinely really like this qualifying format, and I don't think there's a particularly good reason to change it. But if your product is great, I can see why someone might want, more racing. That's what we're really here for.
Yeah.
Is the racing product really that great, though?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the impression that I got was just like, damn, people really don't want to see more Formula One.
Yeah, I was just like,
it's probably pretty telling.
Because the idea of multiple races in a weekend and sprint and feature races come from championships where the cars are a lot closer. The racing is genuinely more exciting, and you genuinely want to see more racing.
Yeah, what's the point going to be if we get a sprint race that pays off less points if, let's say it's reverse grid. Mercedes let's make the top 10 reverse grid. Mercedes starts in 9th and 10th. They cut through the field in 5 laps, and the race finishes as per damn usual.
Yeah. And that...
Because the races are long... The midfield guys will just probably sink to the same point that they're at, because the Mercs and Red Bulls are just going to blow through the field.
Yeah. This would be a good idea if the cars were more equal, but they're not.
No.
They're just not.
4 cars in the field are busted, and the bottom 6 are significantly slower than the other midfield. Do the math here, Dre. The midfield 10, I guess you could say, of McLaren, Racing Point, Renault, which I say Alpine now technically, Ferrari and AlphaTauri. They're in their own little mini midfield block, and then the bottom 3 are
Ferrari.
I know.
Well,
what a weird sentence. But yeah, overall, I guess okay. I mean, if it's a free race trial, I mean, sure, why not? But let's see if they actually are able to draft a plan that they can all agree on, because if there's one thing we joke about on this show relentlessly, it's that Formula One never is able to unanimously agree on anything. So, good luck with that, fellas, and I'll await any further developments on that. The other major story that came out of this meeting was the unanimous agreement of an engine freeze. Effective 2022, there will be no more development on the current power units when the new regulations start next season. They're set to start in 2022 for now. Again, that could still change. We already had this brought forward, also pushed back, I should say, a year last year. So again, we don't know what will happen with COVID and whatnot, and that, you know, the domino effect that could come with that. But as it stands, the engine freeze is now official. So development of the power units is off the table. Bad news, Ferrari.
well, but, that's also addressed in the decision to create an engine freeze. Is Formula One intends, and I pay attention to that word, intends to try and balance the engines together via fuel flow adjustments.
And this was Christian Horner that came out and said this, and it was like a gentleman's agreement that they would try and keep the power units close. And my first thought was, good luck with that.
The big problem is that these are, King and I discussed this a couple days ago, these are power units. They are not just an engine with a hybrid system bolted in. They are one holistic system. And if you take fuel flow away, you take hybrid yield away. You potentially compromise reliability. They're going to need to be very, very careful that in trying to take a little bit of fuel flow off the top to just bring a team back towards a manufacturer back towards everyone else, that they don't accidentally rip the balls off their power unit and cause their ERS system to cut out halfway down the straightaways, like what we saw when Honda couldn't feed their ERS system correctly in 2015, and Ferrari couldn't in 2014. Once the ERS system cuts out, that's a hard 160 horsepower drop, and you just stop accelerating halfway down the straight.
Yeah, and there are, well, we'll get to them very, very briefly. There's going to be a team with, a power unit that doesn't technically have a research and development doesn't have the capabilities of the other manufacturers to develop and see what would our power unit be like if we had, less or more fuel flow. And that could be an issue for them.
Yeah, because obviously the hardware will be frozen, but, unless we get a hard engine map ban, you're always going to have teams pushing the issue on software.
Indeed. And as King alluded to, that team will be Red Bull Racing because they've announced, I think it was the same day actually, or the day after the freeze was made official, that they have bought the intellectual property on the Honda power unit going forward. So at least until 2025, they are going to have their own branded power units. They're going to apparently develop them in-house in Milton Keynes to work on it from there, basically. And yeah, they've dodged the bullets of having to be supplied by Renault, which was very much on the table last year.
That would have been fun.
I think development is a little bit the wrong word, due to what we just mentioned. They will have until 2025, effectively the same 2021, end of 2021 spec Honda power units. They'll be built and maintained by Red Bull and supplied, obviously, to Red Bull and AlphaTauri, unless AlphaTauri changes their name again. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. The most
Red Bull,
important thing that they have now? No. You know the most important thing that this team has now?
What?
Not a single excuse for getting this wrong.
If they've got their engines... if they've got their own engines that they can... Once they have those engines in-house, and they already have a very, very close working relationship with Honda, they're not going to have any packaging surprises. They're not going to be wondering how much power it's going to make. And they're going to have no excuses to build a car around this. Especially if the engines are BOP correctly, and Mercedes and Mugen Honda are now equal. The ball is in your court, Red Bull. It is your job to make a car good enough to compete for the world championship.
And I think that point that you just brought up earlier, the first time we've ever mentioned it in relation to Formula One, BOP. And I think in terms of, yes, the freeze has allowed Honda to, own their own intellectual, Own the IP to their power units. But that's kind of less important in the grand scheme of things. F1 having any form of BOP to bring the cars closer together is a massive thing for the sport. And I'm surprised it's not being talked about more in terms of people who hate BOP or love BOP.
Yeah, as soon as it actually hits and it affects, let's be honest, it's going to be Mercedes because they have the best power unit.
Yeah.
It's going to go down like a lead balloon with those people.
Oh.
Because as soon as Mercedes loses a race because they happen to not have the engine advantage that they normally have, people are going to cry foul and claim that it's not a real win. I am seeing the Twitter comments now. I already know who's going to tweet it. You were in my DMs a couple weeks ago. You know who you are.
Oh, because F1 Twitter, that great barometer of F1 discourse. But you're absolutely right. I mean, King Liz, you're opening Pandora's box here when it comes to Formula One because you've never really had a hardcore BOP.
We've never had
situation.
Any attempt at balancing the cars. We've had regulation shakeups to try and mix up the order. We were always going to get concessions a la MotoGP. In the new era, but never an attempt to actively peg back and improve certain cars to make them more equal.
Indeed, and that potentially could be a massive deal. We'll have to obviously keep an eye on that going forward, but that is potentially a game changer, and I fear certain factories won't like it if their power units are being curbed or cut off at the pass to try and bring everybody else into play. I mean, Formula One does seem to now actively is thinking, shit, we really do need to try and make the sport a bit more balanced here. Salary caps, cost caps, the hint of BOP, an engine freeze.
I think more balanced is kind of a gentle term. I think Formula One is thinking about making their sport more of a sport.
Yeah. You mean it's not just a development race anymore to sell road cars? What do you mean?
That's blasphemous! This goes against the very values of Formula One!
F1 fans, in and of itself, F1 doesn't know what it wants Formula One to be.
No.
Because you have people screaming on both sides of the aisle that it should be more of a sport, or it should be more of a development war.
Yeah. Road cars, road relevance, etc. It's a nasty
I think we should simply
war.
enter Japanese K cars. Who wouldn't want to see Max Verstappen wheeling a Honda Beat and its zebra striped seats?
I vote for Lando Norris in the Daihatsu Copen.
Can they all be shaped like Formula One cars? Man, now I just want to watch more K4GP. That's what I want.
Go!
Oh, dear. A couple of minor bits of biking news to get out of the way before we move into the season review. I'm going to get them out of the way real quick. Number one, Johan Mir teased us all for 12 days about what number he was going to run next year. He's keeping the 36. He's not taking the number one plate. They teased us all on Twitter. Johan, you're boring. Like, honestly, you've barely got more Twitter followers than John McPhee. Take the damn one plate. You need all the help you can get out here.
Blue ball since 2012.
No one wants the one plate. Like, honestly, riders are incredibly superstitious, but also, I mentioned this on my Substack, that generally speaking, riders care a lot more about their branding these days, and their number is a huge part of that.
If I was sitting in the FIM offices right now, I'd be like, so, guys, when are we changing the International Sporting Code to mandate that the champion has to use the one?
Now we're talking.
I don't know. We don't give Scott Dixon that much crap for passing on the one every year.
Or
I don't know. Like, North American motorsports is a lot different, even though here in the U.S., like, the Supercross champion always runs the one.
Yeah, like it's
the same way here. It's just there's the superstition around it because there's only Valentino who broke that mold, at least in modern times, where he just kept the 46 going.
Yeah,
I'm not fussed about it.
It's a strange one because Jorge Lorenzo did it the first time in 2011 when he won the world title in 2010. Even had the number one shaped like a JL, so it looked like it was on brand for him. lost the title to Casey Stoner that year, won it again in 2012, and then didn't bring back the number 1 plate afterwards and stuck with 99. The last person that used the 1 plate was Casey Stoner back in his final season in 2012. Marquez has had a chance to do it. Didn't take it, wanted to be, and if you go in his store, it's 93 everywhere. It's like
I think the last vestige of it was like a tiny little number 1 on his rear-facing camera. I think in like 2014.
Yeah, but that's it. It's like riders are now synonymous with their number, and it's a big part of their brand now. So I don't expect people to take it. I think Mir missed the trick by not doing so.
Yeah, I'm not bothered by him not running the 1. I'm bothered by him teasing us for 2 weeks that he might run the number 1.
That's the annoying part.
You're right. Like, he had my boy Lewis on the MotoGP main account hashtag the decision like it was full LeBron James for a week and a half.
I'm taking my talents back to my regular number.
Yeah, and it was like, you don't tease your audience for a week and a half only to stick with the same number. He thought, oh, that means he has to be going to the number 1 plate, surely. Nope, didn't do it, stuck with 36. Said that while the idea of running the 1 was tempting, he said he won 2 world titles on the 36 and he wanted to stick with the number that brought him good luck. Fun times. Also, shout out to Yamaha. We've actually had now 2 of the big 3 unveil their new bikes for 2021. We had Yamahas a couple days ago. Very, very weird green screening of the whole way through. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a bit all over the place. Some interesting tidbits were dropped in the middle of that, like Fabio Quartararo now has hired a sports psychologist, which I thought was interesting after his collapse last season.
How much are we going to bet that in preseason testing we're going to hear from all the Yamaha riders and team members of how fantastic this bike is, only for it to win in the opening 2 or 3 rounds, fall off, and then nobody can stop bitching about the bike for the rest of the year?
I got that about even money, champ.
That will probably happen.
They're going for like a 4-year streak on this.
They also revealed they've only got 3 top spec Yamahas between them and their satellite Petronas team, and guess which one's missed out again? That's right, the one who was the best on those bikes last season, Frankie Morbidelli. So Valentino Rossi gets the 2021 spec Yamaha, as does the 2 factory runners. Frankie Morbidelli, who let's not forget was championship runner-up last year, doesn't get one. I just think that's funny, personally.
Dre, do you know if he's on the 2020 or 2019 spec M1?
I'm not sure yet. Apparently they're going to be testing parts when they roll up in Qatar in about a month's time.
It's a weird way to boost Franco Morbidelli's rider value, by just having him constantly overachieve in year-old equipment.
Yeah,
that year-old equipment that the Yamaha factory team can't stop whining about. Someone gets on it as used equipment and they go and beat the factory.
Yeah, it's a strange one because Frankie, towards the end of last year, insisted to stick with the 2019 chassis and frame because he liked it so much. He didn't want the 2020 frames that his peers were running. He was like, no, I'm good on this one, and he won 3 races on it. So who am I to argue with the man? So I thought that was quite funny as well. So yeah, I think Honda's presentation is.
Oh no, we need to talk about the other one that happened. King.
What?
They're the same color as your shirt.
Oh,
and the most orange bike ever produced.
Whew.
Factory and Tech 3 KTM unveiled their bikes.
Yeah, I was like, so King, what did you make of the all-orange Tech 3 lineup? It was extremely orange.
Yeah.
As orange as your jumper.
The Tech 3 looks like what the factory bike should look like.
I know.
Yeah, it looks like the livery they run in Supercross, where it's just, there isn't a livery, it's just orange.
Yep.
It's just orange. Like, I don't like how with the factory team you get this enormous matte dark blue typical Red Bull slab on the side of it, like you get with their racing drivers' helmets in Formula 1. It's like just like poof, Red Bull, and it's like yep. Just in case you didn't know who sponsored this team or anything, but KTM got the full orange get-up going on there. A bit concerned they have a lack of sponsors on the second bike, but besides that, Very pretty, if I do say so
KTM has
myself.
enough
Orange Arrows F1 team thinks that the KTM bikes of 2021
Indeed.
too
money.
orange.
Less orange. And Honda's is on February 22nd. That livery is the safest bet in the world because there is no chance in hell that they're changing it.
No.
I thought they were personally going to bring back the Austin Powers one from the end of 2003.
I just want them to bring back the dark Repsol colors. Also, in another bit of news, Marc Marquez passed his most recent checkup. The bone is healing well.
Yay!
The entire rest of the MotoGP grid. Oh god, oh fuck.
He back.
It's like, it's working. So yeah, he can now basically train on an actual motorcycle and not just getting. Obviously, he's got work to do getting the strength back in his right arm. Because if you see pictures of him, his right arm is significantly smaller than his left one in terms of thickness.
It's the opposite of all the jokes we've seen in Family Guy.
Very much so, very much so. So they'll be keeping an eye on that. Also, it's the man's birthday today, 28 years old. It's happy birthday, Marc Marquez. It's a terrifying thought that man's only 28 years old. What have we done with our lives?
It's a terrifying thought that he's already 28 years old.
Mans was a baby when he came into the sport.
Yeah, remember they changed the rules because he was under the 21-year-old minimum age limit to ride that bike, but they had to change the rules because he was technically Moto2 champ at 19, so they had to change the rules to say, hey, if you won the Moto2 title, we can promote you up now regardless of age. They had to do the same thing with Quartararo in Moto3 because they had a 16-year-old age limit and Quartararo was 15 when he won the junior world title. Let's just say Dorna has a great knack of bending their own rules to suit their needs. It's very, very useful indeed. But happy birthday, Mark! And
I cannot wait for Marc Marquez to show up in FP1, just popping out like John Cena at the Royal Rumble at the Garden in 08, 4 months removed from having pectoral torn off the bone.
That'll be
John Cena.
Yeah, just play the Stone Cold theme in the background as he comes out, and it's like, yeah, Marcus is just coming out to raise hell. So. After this quick break, we'll be back and we'll be talking Formula E's 2021 season preview.